Well, hello, Midpoint. How you guys doing? It's good to see you guys. Good to see you guys. I'm excited to be here. I have just started my summer vacation. Any of you guys on summer vacation? Right? No school? It's pretty awesome. I actually just got back from vacation, so I'm really pumped to be here. A lot of you guys probably don't know me. My name is Josh. A lot of you guys may have met me because early on I was helping on Sundays, but now I'm on Saturdays. And so if you come Saturdays, that's usually where I'll be. But here I get to teach today, so I'm pretty excited. This is going to be a fun time. How many of you guys are new 5th grade students today? Sweet. Can we give them a round of applause, guys, and welcome them here? We're so glad to have you guys. Welcome to Midpoint. We're excited to have you this summer. So I mentioned that this summer, I just got back from vacation. I actually went home to Michigan. Any of you guys ever been to Michigan before? A few people? Sweet. That's where I'm from. So actually, if you hold up your hand, you can tell you where you're from Michigan. So I was actually from like right here. This is the coolest thing about being from Michigan because we look like a mitten. Colorado doesn't, I don't know how to do Colorado, like maybe it's a square. I don't know. It doesn't really work. But Michigan, I can do it, and it looks cool. And so I enjoyed my time at home. If you guys have ever been to Michigan from where I'm from, it's actually pretty similar to here in a lot of ways. And while I was at home, I started to think about, Lord, what is it that you want me to share with these guys? I knew I was going to be teaching, and so I was praying. I was asking God, what do you want me to share with them today at Midpoint? And so what I really felt like he's saying, Josh, I want you to share your story. Share your story with them about how you came to know me. And so I'm like, cool, I can do that. So that's what we're going to do today. But here's the deal. I really believe strongly that some of the things that I'm going to share with you guys, some of the questions I started asking when I was your age, some of the decisions I made are going to be one of the most important questions and decisions you can ever make in your life. So I really want you guys to pay attention. So what we're going to do right now, okay, I want you guys to pull out your seatbelts, okay? Pull them out, get them, buckle them up, tighten it up, and let's get started, all right? So I mentioned I'm going to share a story, so I feel like I have to show a picture of me, right? So here's me in 6th grade, all right? Here's a picture of me in 6th grade that's coming up, and it's me, handsome little devil, I know, I was a good-looking dude. I also show this picture because I'm playing the drums. Ryan, our worship leader, doesn't believe that I could be on the worship team. So I'm showing him right here, dude, I've been drumming since I was in 6th grade. Doesn't really believe me. If you also notice, there's a little creepy kid kind of there. I didn't notice that until afterwards, but it's kind of creepy. It's my cousin. But you also notice, too, if you look at my hair, I had a lot more hair in this region that's kind of migrated to, like, maybe here. It's like hashtag old man. I know it's just going to happen, guys. It's just going to happen. But I grew up in a place similar to here in a lot of ways, right? We had a lot of schools, had a lot of restaurants, had a lot of churches. In fact, we had so many churches. I remember one corner near my house, every single corner on the intersection had a church. It's crazy. I'm like, that's so many churches. And this is the place I grew up in. What's even crazier, though, is with all of these churches, I never went to church. All my friends pretty much went to church. A lot of my family went to church, but my parents, my sister, and me, we didn't really go. I actually found out later in life that the reason that we didn't go was because of me. Because when I was younger and my parents would try to bring me to church, I would kick and I would scream and I would embarrass the heck out of them. I don't know if any of you guys were like that when you were younger, but I hated going to church. The only times that I would kind of like not be crazy is if my parents let me bring my G.I. Joe toys or my Terminator toys into the church, and I'd sit in the pews and I'd play with them. I'd be like, pew, pew, pew. And they're like, this is just too much. And so my parents were like, okay, Josh just can't handle church. We're not going to go for a while. And so we never really went back. And so I grew up really not going to church. But, you know, when I was in middle school, if you would have asked me, like, what do you believe? Everyone around me was Christian. I believed I was a Christian. You know, I was actually the really good kid in school. People called me the teacher's pet. You know, I never wanted to do bad things. I actually prayed every time before a meal. I'd pray before bed. And so I was like, yeah, I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I'm following him. And so I believed in a lot of ways that I was doing really well. And then 8th grade rolls around. And for a lot of people, middle school is like really hard. It's a hard transition. For me, middle school is like the best time ever. For me, that was like the peak of my coolness, and I mean that. It's been all downhill for me ever since. But I was so cool in 8th grade. I grew like 8 inches, so I got really tall. I was actually this tall in 8th grade. And so I was like really good at sports all of a sudden. And then when I got good at sports, all of a sudden a lot of people started to like me because they thought I was cool. And then when people thought I was cool, all of a sudden I had girls liking me. And I was like, whoa, this is different. I actually had my first girlfriend in 8th grade. Any of you guys have a boyfriend or girlfriend? So here's it. I thought I was so cool because I had this girlfriend. Here's the deal. I didn't even know she was my girlfriend for the first week of us dating. Isn't that crazy? I had no idea. I was in gym class, and my buddy comes up to me. He's like, Josh, did you know you're dating Emily? I'm like, who's Emily? And he points up into the stands. There's this girl sitting up there, and she smiles at me. And I'm like, sweet, right? That's my girlfriend. This is awesome. But we didn't really talk. It was a middle school thing. But, that was my first girlfriend. I thought I was so cool. And I was pumped because I had all these dreams, right? And I was doing really well at school, really well at sports. I was like, I'm going to be the middle linebacker for the University of Michigan. I'm going to be huge. I'm going to be buff. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to work really hard because I wanted to be cool. I was like, I'm going to get the best grades in school so I can go off and do really great things, have a great job, all these different things. I had all these dreams when I was in 8th grade. And then high school rolls around, and high school was a little different for me. It's a little different world. In 9th grade, I remember when I was going into football camp, my varsity football coach, he comes up to me and says, Josh, come to my office. I'm like, crap, what did I do? Pulls me in his office and says, sit down. I'm like, okay. He's like, Josh, if you play really well this year, if you do really well, I'm going to pull you up to varsity. And if any of you guys know anything about football, if you know like Valor across the street, they're a really good football team. They won state like all the time. That'd be like me being 1 year older than some of you guys saying, hey, you're going to play on varsity. It was a big deal to me. I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. I have such a chance to do so many cool things. People are going to think I'm really popular. This is awesome. And so I worked really, really hard. I was like, I have to be the best at what I'm doing. So I weightlifted. I worked really hard in practice. I became really good, really big. This is actually a picture of me from my freshman year. So I was a bigger dude, a little scarier looking, a little angry, But that was me. I was tough. And I was like, I am going to be the best linebacker ever. But I was also a running back. And so when I was practicing one day, I was running and I get tackled and I didn't want to go down. And so I fall, try to hold myself up, and I end up tweaking my wrist. And it hurt really bad. And I was like, that stinks. But I was like, you know what? I have to fight through this because I have to be the best. I don't want to complain. I don't want to sit out because I want to be on varsity. So I fought through the pain. I wrapped it up. The trainer said, you're fine. I'm like, cool, we're good. But then basketball comes around, baseball comes around, and I couldn't catch the ball. I couldn't dribble. It was really hard. I was like, man, this stinks. I have to go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor. I actually found out that I broke my wrist. I had played the whole football season with a broken wrist, and I didn't even know it. But the really sad thing about that is there's this tiny little bone. But apparently it's like a super important bone in your wrist, like right here, because I was never able to recover. I had physical therapy, I had surgery, all these different things. But I wasn't able to be as good of an athlete as I used to be. I wasn't able to lift as much. I wasn't able to play. I had to play with a cast on. It was really hard. And so when I wasn't as good, all of a sudden I wasn't starting at football anymore. I wasn't the best player. Then all of a sudden, a lot of those friends that I had decided that I wasn't as cool anymore. So I lost a lot of friends. And then when I lost a lot of friends, a lot of the girls that thought I was cute decided maybe he's not as cute anymore. I was like, I think I'm pretty cute. I mean, come on. But they didn't. And so I was like, man, what's going on? And so guys, it was really hard for me. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, this is hard. I had all these plans, these dreams, and they're just being ripped away from me. And so I got really angry. I got angry at the coaches because they weren't paying attention to me anymore. I was like, don't you know that I was like the best player out here? I got angry at my friends because they decided to leave me. I got angry at the girls that used to think I was cute who all of a sudden thought other guys were cuter. I got angry at my parents, really for no reason at all, just because they're my parents, which you guys probably can relate with. But most of all, guys, I got really angry at God. I got so angry with God because I believed that he had taken away what I wanted most in life. I didn't know very much about the Bible growing up. I never read it, never went to church, but in school, we would have actually on the wall the 10 Commandments. And if you guys know any of the 10 Commandments, that was like the only thing I really knew about God. And we're doing this series right now called 10. And so we're going to be going through a little bit of the verses in Exodus that Madison started last week. So what I want you guys to do right now, I want to share this verse with you that had really opened my eyes to who God is. Okay, so we're going to open at Exodus 20, and it's going to be verses 1 through 4. And if you have one of our Bibles, it's the second book of the Bible, so it's right after Genesis. Our Bible, it's on page 52. So if you have your own Bible, it's going to be right around that area. If you don't have one, we'll have it right on the screen. So here's what he says. These are the 10 commandments that Moses had been given by God to tell the people about. Here's the rules of how I want you to live your life. And the first one he says, and God spoke all of these words. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, earth beneath, or the waters below. And there's a lot of words there, a lot of different things that, it's kind of wordy. It's hard to understand some of what he's saying. But there's two main things that really stood out to me. So when I was about your age, after I broke my wrist, I just remembered this. And it really made me not want to follow God. Here's the first one. It said, I am the Lord your God, verse 2. And the reason this was hard for me, we don't really use the word Lord too much anymore. I mean, if you hear it, a lot of times it's like in a bad way. But that's how I thought of it, that he's the king, right? That he's the ruler of my life, that he has authority to actually tell me how I should live my life. That's what the Bible says about God. The God of the Bible is our king. He's our ruler, and he can actually tell us how we should live our life. And that was hard for me. That was hard for me. Then he says, you shall have no other gods before me. And I was like, well, yeah, I know. I mean, there's one God. I only believe in the one God. But he's not just talking like spiritual gods here. What he's talking about here is you shall have no one or nothing above me. And so when I was looking at my life, I actually had a lot of different gods that I was following, right? I was following sports. I wanted to be popular. I wanted to be good at something so people liked me. School, I really made my God. I was like, this is the thing that I want to be known for. I want to be amazing at school. These are all really good things. But in reality, I was saying that these are more important to me. These are the center of my life. God is not. And I didn't want God to be the center of my life. I really didn't. Because when I saw this God, when I thought about this God, what I thought about is an evil ruler, someone who just wanted to tell me what to do. And if you guys think about it, when you think about kings, most of the time you don't think about good kings. We haven't had very many good kings or good rulers in this world. In fact, that's why we live in America, where we have a democracy where a lot of people lead. We don't want to have one person telling us what to do. So let me give you some examples of some kings that I remember, or that are even one in the Bible here. So the first king that we see around Jesus' time, if you guys remember, his name is Herod. He's the ruler, he's the emperor, the Roman Empire. And this guy had so much power that when he heard this prophecy, this story about this future king that was coming, that was now going to be a baby, he decided he didn't want this king to come. And so what he did is he went around and he tried to kill all of the baby boys. It's really crazy, but he had so much power, he didn't want anyone to take the power from him. The next person is Lord Donald Trump. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the wrong picture. Let's put the other one up. It's Lord Voldemort, actually. So this guy has so much power, and he's very evil, right? He says, if you don't follow me, if you don't obey me, if you don't decide that I am the Lord, that's his name too, Lord Voldemort, then you know what's going to happen? Avada Kedavra, right? Evil. It's bad. And this is what I thought of. The last one is probably one of my favorite movies of all time, and there's another emperor in it. This guy. You guys know who this is? Cusco. Right? You ever seen Emperor's New Groove? I love this movie. And even this guy, he's kind of like nice, right? He's dancing around, he's doing fun stuff. But he has so much power that when he decides, I want a summer home, he decides he's going to put it on this really cool hill, but he didn't really care about the people living there. He's like, no, I just want my house there. You guys can go away. So he had all this power that he could do what he wanted. He didn't care about what other people wanted. And guys, if I'm being completely honest with you, when I was your age, when I was in high school, this is how I thought of God. That God was my ruler, my Lord, that he wanted to just tell me what to do, and I had to obey, and if I didn't, right? This is kind of how I saw God. And it was hard for me. Like I said, I got really angry. In fact, right after I broke my wrist, when I wasn't able to play sports anymore, I became the guy in school who actually stood up against Christians. And so whenever someone would bring up the Bible, talk about God, I'd be like, dude, no, you're dumb. That's not cool. Don't talk about that stuff. That's not right. This is a public school. All these different things. I was that guy. And I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand people that believed in God. I was that far from God. And then I met this girl. And yes, she was cute. So that did influence a little bit. But she was a Christian. She was a Christian girl. And this person had more dedication, more joy, more passion to follow God than anyone I'd ever seen before. And it confused me because she was the person that was like, I want God as my king. I want him to actually be the ruler of my life. I want to actually follow him. And when he says that I should do something, even if I don't want to do it, I want to follow him. And it confused me because I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. When is it fun? When is it good for you to follow someone and not do what you want to do? I had a really hard time. But the more that I got to know her, I got to see how genuine her faith really was. How much when she followed God, how much it brought her more and more joy. And I started to realize this God that she's following is not the one that I thought. I had heard of this Jesus guy, but clearly she's believing in a different Jesus than I knew. So I started to ask the question, who really is Jesus? This is when I was about a sophomore in high school. I was asking, who really is Jesus? And why should I follow him like this girl is following? Because clearly she'd figure something out that I didn't. Because I was really depressed. I was lonely. I thought I was being my own king, ruling my own life, choosing to do what I wanted to do. I should have been happy. And then this girl who's saying, no, I'm going to follow him as my king, as my ruler, had way more joy and peace than I ever could. So I started to ask this question. And guys, I'm going to be honest with you, this is probably the most important question I think you'll ever ask in your life. And the way that you answer this question, who is Jesus to me, is going to dictate how you live the rest of your life. So this is a question that I think we all really need to wrestle with and ask. And I think it's so important that it's actually in the Bible, and Jesus himself asks people, who do you think I am? And so what I want to do now is, if you still have your Bibles, let's open up to a new passage. If you have one of ours, it's on page 705. It's going to be in the book of Mark, which is in the New Testament. So it's a little over halfway through. It goes Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's one of the Gospels. 705. It's Mark 8, 27 through 30. And if you don't have your Bible, we'll have it on the screen. But this is what it says. It says, Jesus and his disciples, so his followers, the people who were closest with him, they went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi, just a place by where they were. If you've been reading in the book of Mark up to this point, we saw Jesus doing miracles, healing people, and so they're going with him and doing all this stuff in the different villages. He says, on the way, Jesus asked them, who do the people say that I am? So there's that question. He asked his followers, who are people actually saying that I am? And they replied, some say that maybe you're John the Baptist. And so if you guys remember John the Baptist, he was the guy that came before Jesus, was talking about this guy that was going to be coming. He actually baptized Jesus. And he was saying that there's going to be this king that's going to come. And then he died for his beliefs. And so they thought maybe it was him back to life. Jesus was John the Baptist. Others thought maybe he's Elijah, who's, if you look in the Old Testament, one of the prophets, really well-known prophets of the Old Testament. He's very wise, helps the people to understand how to live for God. And he said maybe other people said maybe you're just one of the other prophets. So basically what other people were saying, they're saying you're one of the teachers, right? You're someone who can help us learn how to live good lives, to be godly. So you're one of the prophets, one of the teachers. So Jesus is like, okay, but what about you? You who have been following me, my closest friends, my disciples, who do you say that I am? Who do you guys say that Jesus is for you? Peter, one of my favorite people in the Bible, a cool guy, he answers right away. He's like, you are the Messiah, with strong confidence. And then Jesus does something weird. He says, Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him. It's kind of strange. But basically, Jesus is like this. He's like, yes, Peter, you are right. I am the Messiah. And other people are not going to know quite yet. They will know someday. But right now, only you guys know. And I have a reason for that. But I am the Messiah. And when I read this, when I was searching who is Jesus, and I asked this question, and I see Peter say, you're the Messiah, I'm like, what does that really mean? I didn't know what Messiah meant. I didn't know. I was like, what does this really mean? So I looked it up. You know what I found out? That Messiah is actually another word. It means Christ. Messiah is the Hebrew word. Christ is the Greek word. And they mean the same thing. So this is kind of weird because I was like, I always thought, isn't Christ Jesus' last name? It's Jesus Christ, right? That's what I thought. Actually, no. Jesus doesn't have a last name. His name isn't Jesus Christ, it's Jesus. Some might have called him Jesus of Nazareth, where he was from, Jesus of Mary and Joseph, like his parents. But he wasn't Jesus Christ as his last name. Christ actually is a title. It's a title. This is what you would call someone for their role, who they are in life. So Peter, what he actually was saying when he said Jesus Christ, what he was saying is that Jesus is a Christ. He's the king. The Messiah is the anointed one, the one that was promised to us, the king that's going to come and give us a new land, where we're going to have peace and freedom and love and joy. This is the king that was promised. So when you say, I believe in Jesus Christ, what you actually say is, I believe that Jesus is king. In fact, you're saying, I believe that Jesus is my king, my Lord, my ruler, my Messiah. He is the king of my life. So you can't actually believe in Jesus Christ unless you see him, that he is your king. And you remember, this was a hard thing for me because I was like, I don't want to follow a king. I don't want to follow a king because they care only about themselves. But as I read through the book of Mark, as I read through the Gospels, as I interacted with people and learned more about who Jesus was, I realized that Jesus is not the same kind of king that all the other kings I had thought like he was. In fact, he's nothing like any of the kings that we know of. He's nothing like those ones that I said before. Because the other kings, a lot of times, they're selfish, right? They care about themselves. They make you obey them, and if you don't, right? And it's like, no matter what, you have to see them as your king. You have to follow them. And if you don't, it's not a good day. Jesus is saying, I have more power as the Messiah, the king. He's the King of kings, which means he has more power than any king in the world. The Bible says he's the Lord of lords, which means he has more power as the Lord of the universe than anyone else. But he says, I care so much about you that I'm not going to force you to do anything. I'm not going to make you submit to me. I want you to choose for yourself what you want to do with your life. I want you to choose who you want to worship as your king. And this changed my life. This changed my life. When I heard him say, you have a choice, he said 2 words, follow me. Those words changed my life forever. I realized that this king cared so much for me that he wanted me to follow him. That he wasn't going to force me to, but that he told me that if you follow me, I promise you that this is the best decision you will make. All other kings will let you down. And that's sort of what I started to realize. You know, after I broke my wrist, after I wasn't able to play sports, I started to realize that, honestly, I was looking for 2 main things in life. And I think all of us are looking for 2 really important and good things. I think what we're looking for is we're looking to be loved, and we're looking to have purpose. We want to have meaning in life. So when I was looking at sports, I viewed this as a way for me to make friends so that people would like me, so that the girls would like me, so that I could feel loved. When I was looking at grades and getting a good job and being the best athlete, I was also looking for purpose, for meaning, for people to look at me and say, man, that guy's, he's valuable. He's really good. And I actually think he's worth me following. I wanted those things. And I realized that God was saying, when we looked back in that Exodus verse, he says, you shall have no other gods before me, that I was putting those things as my gods, as my kings. Because I was saying, I want this more than God himself. And I realized something, that the most important decision that you guys will ever make is what you decide to place at the center of your life. And you guys have a choice. You can say, I want my career to be the most important thing to me. I want my family to be the most important. I want video games to be the most important to me. I want sports, whatever it may be. You could say that I want this as the center of my life. And Jesus is saying, no, you can follow me. You can choose to follow me as your king. And one of the things that you'll realize is as you start to follow these other kings, these other gods, that they'll only let you down. Jesus says, no, I will be there for you forever. And so you guys have a choice. Your parents can't make you follow him. I can't, as much as I would love to. This is something Jesus says that each and every one of us have to choose. We have to choose to follow Jesus as our king. And if you guys want to have Jesus as your king, if you want to follow him and you want to say, yes, Lord, I want you as the ruler of my life. These other things are letting me down. They're not fulfilling me. I know that you are the only king that promises to be with me for eternity, that promises to give me love and purpose for all of eternity. There's 3 things we need to do. Number 1, we need to obey him. And this is a really hard one, I think, for a lot of people. It was hard for me. And this has taken a lot of time for me to step into actually obeying him as my king. There's a lot of things in the Bible that God says for us to do, and a lot of them aren't always fun. A lot of them aren't always the popular thing to do. And so a lot of times I'd be like, well, I'll obey him if my friends are doing it. I'll obey him if my parents make me do it. I'll obey them if, it's cool, if it's good for me. But a lot of times when we're doing that, when we say, I'll obey him if, we're actually saying this other thing is more important to me than God. He's not the center of my life. This other thing is more important to me. And he says, you can have me be the center of your life. You can obey me. Let me give you an example of my life where I chose to obey, and it changed my life forever. Before I moved out here, I was in Michigan my whole life, as I shared. And I really heard God saying, Josh, I want you to go to Colorado. I want you to go to Colorado. And I was like, I don't know anyone there. All my friends, my family, my job, everything I knew was in Michigan. But I heard really clearly that God was saying, I have something for you. So I was like, okay, I'll follow you. And then I found a school out here, Denver Seminary, that I was like, this is where I need to be. This is amazing. And I got a full ride scholarship, which means I didn't have to pay for anything, which right now you guys probably don't realize, but when you get to college, you have to pay. It's crazy. And so I got this full ride scholarship, and I'm like, oh my word, this is amazing. But then I heard God again. He was like, Josh, this isn't what I have for you. I want you to turn down the scholarship. And I was like, are you crazy? What's better than free money? He's like, I have something better for you. So I had a choice. I was like, okay, I can either take the free money because this is what I want to do, or I can choose to obey him, and I can follow him. And you know what I saw in the obeying? I saw that I had rent to pay with no job. I had to pay for school. I didn't know anyone out here, and he's saying, follow me. I promise you I have something better for you. So I did. I said, okay, God, I'm turning this down. I'm going to follow you. I don't know what that means. And it was hard. It was a hard couple weeks of me having no idea what God was going to do. And then you know what he did? He brought me here. He brought me to Midpoint. You guys are the thing that he said, I have something greater for you. I would have never known that this is where he was going to lead me, to this church, to these people, to you guys who I've grown to love. He has given me something even greater because I chose to obey him. And because of that, a lot of times after we obey him, we learn to see that we need to, number two, is trust him. A lot of times we get in hard situations, things are not how we want, right? When I broke my wrist, it was not what I wanted for my life. And in that moment, I had a choice that I could trust him and say, I know, God, that this isn't the way I want it, but I know that you have good things for me. I didn't. I ran away. But now I see, looking back, that breaking my wrist was actually one of the best things that happened to me because it brought me to God. It got me to see who he is and how much he loves me. Are you guys trusting him as your king? And lastly, probably the most important thing of all is we need to expect big things out of him. Guys, he is our King of Kings. He is the Lord of Lords. That means he has more power to do anything in the world. He just wants us to ask him. He wants us to come to him to ask him for things, and you can never ask him for too much. And I don't do this all the time. I don't expect God to move in my parents' lives. I don't expect him to do big things for me to show up. But he says, I want to. Expect me to show up. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to enter into a time where I really want to encourage you guys to think about some of this stuff. I want you to think about that question, who is Jesus to me? If Jesus were to ask you today, who am I to you? What would you say? And if you want to put him at the center of your life, be your king. Are you going to obey him? Are you going to trust him? And are you going to expect him for big things? We're going to sing a new song today. It's called More. And this is one thing that I want to encourage you with and promise you, that the more and more that you get to know Jesus as your king, the more you will see that he is our prize. It's not heaven. It's not the things he provides. It's himself. Because only Jesus can give you fully love and full purpose for all of eternity. Let me pray. Father God, I just thank you just for this morning that we get to be here, get to worship you. Father, I just pray that you help us just to see you as the king of our lives. Help us to experience your love, experience the purpose that you've given to us.